Many state governments are planning either reduced or plan to reduce their 2020 budgets, while others have suspended ongoing capital projects as part of measures to mitigate the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Measures are being adopted by state governments following a drastic reduction in their statutory allocations and internally generated revenue (IGR). State governments in Nigeria had budgeted over 9 trillion naira for the 2020 fiscal year, and most of them have already gone back to the drawing board review their budgets downwards, shelving implementations of the new minimum wage, cancellation of foreign trips, and cancellation of certain capital projects. Hello and thanks for joining us today on TVN Business Daily. I am Chiwendu Osisiago, and today we shall be discussing on the implications of budget cuts by state on post-COVID-19 economy. But before we go into discussion, let's look at what is happening in the business world. The national official exchange rate may fall to 430 naira to the dollar by the end of 2020. United Capital PLC, a Pan-African investment banking and financial services group, said on Tuesday. The firm, in its economic forecast for the second half of the year, titled Nigerian H to 2020 Outlook Report, up in the air analyzed the state of the Nigerian economy and outlined future projections informed by the domestic and global events. It said what could have been a flourishing year for the Nigerian economy was caught in the web of a global public health crisis which grounded domestic and external economic activities. It said the GDP figure for the second quarter 2020 was calm, a negative despite the series of stimulus packages by the authorities aimed at easing the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on businesses and households. The continued implementation of the 10-year capital market master plan will be one of the major focus of the new management of the Securities and Exchange Commission. According to the new Director General of SEC, Lamido Yuguda, the groundwork done by the past management and professionalism of the Commission staff would impact very positively on the capital market. He noted that while the new management team at SEC seeks possible ways of strengthening the plan for enhanced impact, the members will equally work together to improve market regulation, surveillance, and general development. The new SEC boss commended the outgoing management for setting up the Capital Market Support Committee on COVID-19 to coordinate the market's contribution to fighting the pandemic. The Central Bank of Nigeria on Tuesday officially devalued Naira to exchange the dollar at 381 naira per dollar on the importer and exporter window. The data obtained on the website on the financial market dealer quotation OTC Securities Exchange on the CBN official rate and Tuesday showed a 5.54% change from 360 naira per dollar. Financial market dealer quotation securities was registered by the Securities and Exchange Commission with a mandate to create an efficient platform for the registration, listing, quotation, trading, and reporting of securities and financial products. And that's the business news on Television Nigerian. I am Chiwendu Osisiago. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back shortly.
My name is Chiwendu Osisiago, presenter at Television Nigerian Business Daily. In a globalizing world, ours is to keep you engaged, informed, and educated on contemporary happenings in the business world. We therefore command a special audience of business-minded viewers who are eager to know more about business. I mean, your business. Why don't you take advantage of our special affordable offer to let the world know about your concepts, your goods, and of course, your services? You can call us on 080-3071-6959 or 070-3234-9054. You can also visit us at Television Nigerian in Guzapi, Abuja, and follow us on all our social media handles on Facebook, YouTube, and of course, on Twitter at Television Nigerian. Your business is our concern.
Thanks for staying with us, and if you're just joining us, it's TV and Business Daily. Like I said earlier, we shall be discussing on implications of budget cuts by state on post-COVID-19 economy. Our guest, Shamsuddin Abdulrazak, is a public speaker, a freelance journalist, voice-over artist, and a personal development trainer with focus on self-awareness.
20 before now, of which most states have actually concluded and submitted their budget since 2019, not knowing that there is going to be a pandemic. So when the pandemic came, it was actually as a shock. So definitely they had to, for every sensible government and every sensible individual, you have to actually cut down, because now businesses are at odds. So people are not doing businesses again, and a lot of things we actually at a standstill. And looking at Nigeria as a country where the major bulk of our income as a nation comes from the crude oil also. So when the price also fell, definitely they had to readjust. And the Nigerian economy actually operates like where we have a big brother who is the federal government, and he has two younger brothers who are the state and the local government. So, and how the Nigerian economy works is, okay, fine, everybody brings his money and we'll give it to our elder brother, and he shares it to us according to how he felt we needed at that particular time. So definitely when the elder brother says, okay, fine, we don't have much again, so with the little we have, definitely if I'm giving money for my own family, which is state governments now giving money from the federal allocation, definitely they have to look at, okay, fine, what is visible and what is much very important at this time. So now what is very important at this time is the economic recovery, how the economy can actually come back to life. And I guess that's the more reason why the state government had to cut down the expenditure, so that they actually focus on more is more important to them, so that they can actually survive the heat of the COVID-19, which was not predicted before now.
So are you saying that the cuts by the state government is actually a good move?
Yes, it's actually a good move. But where we'll actually have issues with it is where they're actually going to be focusing priorities now. Okay. So because we have to look at, okay, what are they cutting down on? So it is when we look at that, state governments are actually cutting down on the staff salary, or especially for political appointees. Like Kaduna State government is actually cutting down the expenses on even travels on government. So if you look at those ones, and before now, the federal government itself has actually at start of March said, okay, looking at what is obtainable now, we are going to first of all put an embargo on recruitment. So nobody comes into the civil service because we don't have money to employ anybody. Okay. So, and the ones we have, we are going to see how we can actually manage them. Because as of March, the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed Shamsuna, was actually saying that she was looking at the government now is looking at a situation whereby they wouldn't want to downsize to say, okay, fine, they are laying off people, but they will try as much as possible to take care of the workers they have currently. And the issue of either replacement that comes in the civil service is also, embargo is going to put on everything. Nobody comes in. Let's see how we can actually manage the people we have now and sustain them. Then maybe if the economic improve, we can actually say, okay, we are bringing more people in. And that's what some state governments are also doing. Although it's actually affecting when it has to do with the minimum wage. Some state governments are saying now that they cannot actually withhold, continue to pay because there is drop in allocation. So, and it's actually beckons us as a nation to actually look at how we can look at elsewhere, because we all have states that are supposed to be looking into their internally generated revenue. And truth be told, within the last 4 months that we've been having this pandemic in Nigeria, the Nigerian custom has actually recouped almost 500 billion from the custom duty and other things they've been able to get from their own end. And the Nigerian custom, the FIRS, and the NNPC are the three major source of revenue for us as a nation. So, and all those aspects are not being stopped during this COVID-19. Okay. The Nigerian sea borders are still open, and people actually bringing goods. There was the goods and services which were under essential commodities that were allowed to flow during the COVID-19. So, and even taxes were still being deducted from people. And it might interest you to know that at the beginning of this year, we had a situation whereby there was an increase on tax from the normal 5% to 7.5%, which we had 2.5% increase. So all those things are actually ways whereby the government is actually using to also get money. And it's the government has not fared badly in that aspect. The only time when the government fared badly is the issue of the crude oil itself, when the price of crude oil actually dropped below the projected figure of we projected $32 per barrel, and it fell to like $18 per barrel, which will makes it like, okay, we are now running at a loss. But the good news is that the price is picking up again as countries are opening their economy. The price has started picking up again, and we actually have seen a situation whereby the economy is actually trying to bounce back again from what we have. But all in all, it is actually necessitated. But then we have to look at the situation whereby what are the priorities that the state governments are actually looking at now.
Okay, and with the petrol pump price too, that has been increased from 125 to 143 now.
Yes, before it was 145, then it went back. So it's a situation whereby the government is actually the market forces now is what that is determining the price. And what you do is, if government has actually the issue of subsidy, when it has actually been removed, you now have a situation whereby market forces are the one that determines the price, and it's actually very good for the economy, in such a way that the money that government is using to subsidize is being used to solve some other issues that are very, very pertinent to the Nigerian economy. So all in all, it's actually a very good one. So people now, like the actors in the game, will not have any excuse again to say, okay, fine. And the government itself will not say, okay, we have an excuse. That's more reason why we actually subsidizing. So deregulating the sector, making it easier. If you look at this, like kerosene, you look at diesel itself, it has already been deregulated. There's no subsidy in it. So the market forces determines what happens. So if the demand and the supply meets, and people bargain, and the prices either goes up or it comes down, so it's not stable. So we don't need to have a stable, what's it called? Kind of price in a free market system. Okay. Because the only time where we have a stable price is when we are operating on a socialist economy, where the government is actually a key player and the government is subsidizing lots of issues, like lots of social amenities for us. By so doing, the government is not giving priority to what we ought to be giving priority to.
All right, thank you. So this education and health budget seems to have suffered the most. What exactly is the implications for this?
Yes, the COVID-19 has actually exposed us to the fact that there are a laxity in our system. We get to know that our health care, for example, doesn't have the capacity to actually withstand all this. And we could see how the government from all over the country, we are actually jumping from trying to create more isolation centers, trying to create a lot of things. The good news is that the pandemic has actually come as a blessing, especially for the health sector. Now, we are now seeing more investment from the private sector going into the health sector. And we now have more cottage hospitals being built within a short while. And we're now looking at, okay, what has actually happened over the years? So what we are going to be experiencing post-COVID now is how people will start investing. Now, private sectors will now start investing in health because they see the potential in that. We now have the federal government having a kind of a credit facility for those that are into the pharmaceuticals to produce more drugs. So it's because the major people that actually brings pharmaceutical into the country are the Indian guys. And now, when the borders are locked, we can't actually get those things into the country. What happens? We have to boost the capacity of our local pharmaceutical industry. So we see that also coming up. So post-COVID, we are going to see a very robust system. But as of now, we actually are going to suffer it. And education also. also been heated for the fact that that's the more reason why now the federal government says, okay, fine, primary schools, especially for those that are having exams, should resume. But the fact is we cannot resume because according to UNICEF, we are supposed to have 1 teacher to 40 students in a class. But in this sense, we are having, if you go to normal public schools, you have class A, B, C, and you have more students in a particular class. So definitely now, if we are now saying we should minimize because of COVID and it should not spread, what happens? We are now going to have a situation whereby we are going to minimize. We don't have much classrooms to cater for that. And according to the budgetary allocation, we are supposed to have a situation whereby we have 25% of the budget to be allotted to education. But for over the years, we've been staggering between 7% to 10% of the Nigerian budget going to education. So now, the priority now is, okay, fine, there are suggestions that we move to the e-learning system. There are a lot of factors that is going to affect the e-learning system that you will not make it to function as is expected to be. The e-learning, electricity is not yet fixed because you have to charge the gadgets. Not all students have access to these gadgets. And now we are now looking at broadband also, how the broadband penetration. Majority of those students that are in the remote villages cannot have access to this one. We are in the urban centers, we are lucky that we have the 4G network that can actually connect. So, and what of those that are in the interland, those that are in the rural areas, how do they have access to all this? So it actually shows us that there are a lot of lapses. But post-COVID, we are going to see that, okay, we are going to move from where we used to be. But it's not that we're actually at where we are supposed to be. So COVID has actually come to teach us a lesson. And we've actually known that how we are not prepared to actually compete with the world. But it's going to witness more investment. A lot of people we have a lot of ICT innovations that have actually erupted in the last 4 months. Especially, we now have U-lessons coming to tell us, okay, you can stay at home and watch TV and learn chemistry, mathematics, and all that. We have more companies coming up with learning management system and a host of other things that are coming up in that the education sector, the ICT that links to education. So all in all, it actually shows us that government cannot do it all. But then we need enabling policies from governments that will help us to actually push the Nigerian economy to where we ought to be.
All right, thank you. Okay, looking at the global oil right now, you realize and notice that it's actually gaining strength. So will this help in improving the economy at large?
Yes, it's going to. And it has actually been helping because that's what we actually rely on. So definitely you will have actually discovered that before when the government came into office 2015, then we now had a situation where by 2016 we went into recession. And we now had the economic recovery and growth plan for from 2017 to 2023, so which was supposed to boost the Nigerian economy. And unfortunately, that particular strategic plan is now going to be put on a halt because as of Monday, the federal government has actually inaugurated another working committee to actually come up with another national development plan. So that particular, it has to do with us looking elsewhere. Mm-hmm. Now, we've actually known that the oil price has actually dwindled and it's now fluctuating. And there have been this clamor over the years that we needed to look elsewhere. We needed to look elsewhere for us to actually gain strength. So now we've seen more investment in the areas of agriculture that the federal government is actually pushing people to do. We are seeing more investment in the private sector, in other fields, and in ICT, for example. So all those ones are going to be where we needed to be pushing more attention to. Because the reality is that more countries are actually looking into electric cars. So if we are having more investment in electric cars, definitely there won't be need for the crude oil again, especially in our own situation here. So us as a government and as a people, we ought to start looking elsewhere to see how we can actually boost the Nigerian economy and make it to where we actually want it to be.
All right, let's take a quick break. Then after the break, we'll continue. So stay with us. Thanks for staying with us again. And if you're just joining us, it's still TV and Business. I will be discussing on implications of budget cuts by state on post-COVID-19 economy. My guest is here in the studio. He is Samsidin Abdulrazak. He is a freelance journalist and a public speaker, personal development trainer with focus on self-awareness. A common question is that what may be the implications of restarting on minimum wage by states?
Yes, when you look at the issue of the minimum wage, the average person, according to the United Nations, you're supposed not to go to on less than $2 a day. And if we look at the exchange rate, we have a situation of 360 naira to $1, so which is 720 naira or thereabout. So if you now look at that, a lot of people are not what the labor is saying is the money can actually take them home. You know, it is like, okay, your take-home salary. So they say now it is not even taking them home because all it takes them is to the market, and after you've gone to the market to purchase everything, it's off. So you're looking at the 30,000 naira minimum wage and a situation whereby a lot of people now are not benefiting from that. So we only have very few state governments and the government at the center. Even the government at the center, as out of now, is still grappling with arrears, still grappling. As out of now, the federal civil servants are even yet to have a balanced salary since the implementation was said to have started earlier this year. They are yet to have a balanced salary. So it is staggering, like with arrears issues and all that. Not to talk less of those that are yet to even start paying. So we have a situation whereby I was in Zoom meeting with the NLC president sometimes last month. It's a program organized by Action Aid Nigeria, and we're actually discovering the work environment during COVID and post-COVID. And the NLC president was of the opinion that yes, they are not also oblivious to the fact that the economy is actually not friendly. So they're also looking at how they can actually reason with the government. But they actually needed the government to also reason with them also. Even if you are actually going to consider everything, one thing you shouldn't consider is downsizing people. Yes, because you are going to push, the labor market is already saturated, and you will also want to push some people there. Now, the salary also should not be touched. So, and that's the more reason why you see some state governments are looking at, we'll put a halt on capital projects, and let's focus more on the recurrent expenditure, which is staff salary. So majority of state governments, what normally gobs the majority of the money is recurrent expenditure, staff salary, and the host of maybe overhead costs within ministries, departments, and agencies. So now looking at such, the NLC president is of the opinion that, let's look at what is actually very, very important now. People need to eat. And when you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, the first thing that is actually at the basement of the pyramid is food. So if it's said that, somebody is filled up, he's not hungry, so at least he can actually think straight and think of every other thing. But then if you say, fine, you are putting a halt or you're cutting up down in salary, you're cutting the minimum wage, which is not even, so which the money is getting before, maybe it was at the last minimum wage, which was 18,000 naira. Now, there was a boost. The market is not friendly. People go to the markets every day and the prices are increasing, and nobody, they are not looking at you that, fine, you are a rich person or you're no. We go to the same markets and we shop in the same place, and those that are selling, a lot of factors also determine the prices of what they sell. So they are not looking at you that, you are a civil servant, let me sell it at a small price. They are there to also make their own profits. So it beckons on the state governments to also look at all these issues and say, fine, this is what we are coming with. Like one of those state governments that actually have done that is the Cross River State Governor. He said, now there's going to be tax, the low income earners and those that are in the non-skill sector of the economy are not going to be paying tax, at least for now. So he's concentrating the tax more on the elites, those that already have a very balanced system of income. So that these people, you won't be putting pressure on them. And at the same time, these people are not getting anything, and you're still putting pressure on them to pay tax. So it's just like you are shortchanging them. You are indirectly meeting, pressure on them. So these are ways whereby state governments can actually look down and see. Now, there's this thing I also needed to reiterate here, that the labor and the federal and the labor and the government itself, irrespective of government of any ties, are supposed to be like, okay, we are all partners in progress. We are coming from this side on behalf of the student, on behalf of the workers, and you are also the employer. Let's see how we can actually improve the services. We are all in this country, and we believe in this project together. Let's see how it works with us. So, but most times there are always loggerheads. Okay. This one will say, okay, fine, this is not good for us. This one will say, okay, fine, this is not good for us. And at the end of the day, they say if two elephants are fighting, this is the grassroots that suffers. So when the government says, okay, fine, this is what we are agreeing at, the labor says this is what we are agreeing at, then the poor civil servant who is even yet to even have anything on his table is left to the fate of like, okay, to pray to God and wait until when these issues are being settled. So up until then, he doesn't get any money and he continues to suffer.
All right, so before we conclude, how do you see Nigerians coping with this whole COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, one thing about the Nigerian people is Nigerian people are very, very resilient and resistant to hardship, so to say. So for everything that comes in, we have this way of actually absorbing it. So irrespective of, and somebody says if you can actually survive in Nigeria with the economy, you can actually survive anywhere in the world. So, and that's Nigerian people have, that's one thing that the good side we also need to look at ourselves. Over time, and in the last couple of months, we've had Nigerians trying to bring out the good side of even the COVID-19. Yes, people are actually locked down. We've seen a situation whereby there are more engagement of remote work. People now work from home. We have a situation whereby the entertainment sector is also has had an explosion. We have people, those that are into the stand-up comedy and the normal comedy skits are now having a more engagement online. So we have more people now that are actually having the ICT sector is actually one of the gainers in this COVID era. Yeah. So the telecommunications company, the ICT sector, these are big gainers in this particular period of the pandemic. Yes, the agricultural sector, yes, they have actually been they're actually smiling to the bank because people are at home and definitely they will eat. So definitely those are people that have actually been top gainers. And one of the people that have been worst hit are the tourism sector, the hoteliers. These are people that, okay, fine, people don't, there are bans on clubbing, there are bans on parties, so people are actually at home. So, and these are things that have actually affected over time. The aviation sector is also one of the worst hits. People are not allowed to travel by air, and these are, it's actually, but post-COVID now, we see how people are actually trying to come back, and but then trying to put your footings back again is just like a child who has been crawling before and is trying to walk.
All right, thank you so much. Your final take, sir.
Yes, my final take is I would like to urge government at all levels to actually prioritize the education, allocations to education and the health sector, because these are the basic sector that actually affects the lives of people directly. Yes, we are not oblivious to the fact that we needed to put much investment in infrastructural development, but education and health are things that we needed to put priority on coming to post-COVID. And if we're able to have these sectors filled, then definitely the Nigerian society is going to be better for each and every one of us.
All right, thank you so much. We just therefore hope that the government intensify their effort in making sure these things are available for citizens like us.
Yes.
And for this COVID-19 to be, for everybody to be convenient for us. All right, thank you so much for coming on TV, and Mr. Shamsuddin Abdul Razak. Yes. I hope I got the pronunciation correctly.
Shamsuddin Abdul Razak.
Okay, Shamsuddin. Yes. All right, thank you for coming on TV and Business today. It was good to have you.
Yes, thank you very much for having me.
And that's what you have for you today on TV and Business Daily. I am Chiwendu Osisiago. And don't forget that you can follow us on all our social media platforms, on Facebook and YouTube, and of course on Twitter at Television Nigerian. Do you have a wonderful day? Bye for now.